Welcome everyone. We're really excited to be in workshop 2. As usual, we start all this start this community, these sessions with everyone introducing themselves. So I'm gonna start with myself. My name is Paola Aguirre. I am a founder of Borderless Studio, a research and design practice based on connecting communities to design processes, and I'm co-founder of City Open. My favorite community garden in Chicago. It's kind of a sweet, it's kind of bittersweet memory. I helped this Black farmer in Bronzeville with a farm called Otis Fresh Farm. It was one of our pilot projects in City Open in the fall of 2016. He was displaced because he didn't own the land. Like, it's a major issue with a lot of community gardens, but he moved to Inglewood, so he's in 51st. It's just harder to get there every weekend, but that was my happy place for a couple of years. I'm gonna popcorn it to Luisa.
Hi everyone, I'm Luisa. Graduated 2018, looking for work at the moment in architecture. Was first introduced to City Open when I was in Paula's seminar class way back when, so been hopping in and out ever since. My favorite urban garden, I should say the one I've been most familiar with, is probably Sweetwater Foundation. Haven't been super involved otherwise since. But yeah, pass it on to the next person. Annie Ball.
Hi, I'm Annie Ball. I'm a designer at Ross Barney Architects. I first heard about City Open through a friend at Landon Bone Baker. Also got the very great pleasure of meeting Paula through mutual friends and connections at SAIC and Skidmore, Owens & Merrill. I don't know if I have a favorite community garden. I'm looking to be swayed. But yeah, Sweetwater Foundation is also a top choice for me. Joe.
I'm Joe Pertinier. I'm an architect at Smith Group. I heard about City Open through friends at work, and my favorite community garden, I'm not really a participant in it, but it's off Division Street, kind of by the Target on Division. So that's my Al, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Elle Ramel. I'm co-founder of City Open Workshop. And my favorite community garden, I actually really like the one by Division 2. It's the city garden, so they do all like the produce for Rick Bayless, etc. So I kind of like the idea that like famous chefs are like buying produce from this little garden that sits on a development site. I'm going to popcorn it to Angel.
Hi, my name is Angel Patiera. I am an architect at BKV Group. I heard about City Open through Debbie Liu with the MPC. So we had been talking to her about this site up in Rogers Park. So I participated in the MPC in 2018 when it was in person. So hopefully I can help out with our new efforts that we're going virtual. So, and then favorite community garden, that's a tough one. I do have my favorite park right now. We go to Wells Park a lot up here in Lincoln Square, and though dogs are not allowed, I am one of those bad parents that allows their dog off their leash. He's pretty good most of the time. So, and now I'm able to take my daughter with us and play on the park as well. So it's been a good family experience. I will pass it on to Maddie Clark.
Hi, my name is Maddie. I'm a landscape designer at Design Workshop. I heard about City Open just through social media. Favorite community garden, I haven't visited a lot of community gardens, but one that I thought was kind of cool was There's one in Southwark or in South Shore. I don't know the name of it, but it's right next to the Southwark site. And it's just a really cool site. Popcorn, Maria.
Hello, everyone. I am Maria Munoz. I work for Living Habitats as a landscape designer. I heard about City Open through social media also, and although it's been said a few times, the honest truth is also Sweetwater for me. It's the first place I went to when we moved here, and I always continue to go back. I will popcorn to Al.
Hi everyone, Al. I'm from South Shore. I work at Windsor Park Lutheran Church as the property manager here, where we have a community garden and a Wi-Fi accessibility ministry. My favorite community garden, can't pick my own, so go with Harambe Gardens in Garfield Park. And I'll popcorn it to Lisa.
I can pass it again, unless there's another Louisa in here. Let's see. Arnold Koss?
Hello. Sorry about not having video at the moment. So I am a transportation planner and I work as a transit program manager. I am, what do I do? What do I hear about City Open? I heard about it through Elle when we worked at UI Lab City Digital a couple years back. And I've been involved in most of the seasons since then. Do I have a favorite community garden? Not at the moment. I'm honestly not that familiar with them. I guess I can pass this off to Marina.
Thanks, Arnold. My name is Marina Barones. I'm an architect at DLR Group. I heard about City Open through a friend, and my favorite community garden in Chicago is sort of like a community garden. It's the North Park Village Nature Center. I went there when I was a kid and I learned how to make butter there and learned about nature. So I guess that resonates with me. I'll pass it off to Brett. Did you go, Brett?
Yes, hi.
Okay.
My name is Brett. Sorry I hopped on a little late, but I am a landscape architect and urban designer at Smith Group and heard about City Open, gosh, probably this past winter. We were lucky enough to host one of the first sessions of the year at our office. So might have met a couple of you guys then and have been really grateful to be involved since then. Favorite community garden in Chicago? I love this question because I'm a landscape architect. But I do have one. There's one in Uptown called the Winthrop Family Garden, and it's super tucked away, like you wouldn't know it's there. It's on Winthrop Avenue, sort of on the back side of North Broadway, and it has a really rich history regarding some of the like racial segregation that's happened within the city, like before World War II. So it's a family garden dedicated to a lot of the residents that used to live on that street specifically. So highly recommend checking it out, very neighborhood based. Since I joined late, does anyone know who's left? Raise your hand. Doug.
Hi all, I'm Doug. I'm a second-year master's student in city planning at UNC currently, but I'm from Chicago. I'm from Lakeview. I'm a proud CPS grad. Let's see, found out about this online and just kind of looking at ways to stay engaged with Chicago while away. And I'm going to say my favorite community garden is Global Gardens, part of Peterson Garden Project on Lawrence by the river. I like that it's a shared space between Peterson Garden Project and the refugee farm there. And it's also the only place that or the first place I gardened in Chicago. I'll pass it to Allison.
Hi, everybody. I'm Allison Payne, and I am an urban planner with Antero Group for the remainder of this week. And then next week, I'm starting a new job at HUD.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Wow.
So gonna move over back to affordable housing.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I actually heard about City Open a couple years ago when I first moved to Chicago. So this is, I don't even know how many seasons, a lot of seasons. And my favorite community garden is one that's right by my house. I don't even think it has a name. It's just one of those pocket ones that you can like walk through. It's off of Wood in the Wicker Park, Westtown area. And I will popcorn to, I believe Kendra hasn't gone yet. Sorry, I got you as you're drinking water.
It's okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kendra with Metropolitan Planning Council. I heard about City Open through Paula, and I don't really know a lot of community gardens, but the one that I've been to that I thought was really cool is the one that's next to the El Paseo area. I think it's just El Paseo Community Garden. It has all these nooks and crannies and like real places to sit. And it's very cool. I will pass it over to Marina.
I already won, but I could pass it to Mark.
Hi everyone, I'm Mark Lawrence. I'm the creative lead over at Weisendale. We're a small design firm. How did I hear about City Open? Well, we're in the spring session, and I heard about it through my friend Jenny Hunt. Do I have a favorite community garden? There's one close to my house at Union Park, where my daughter went to camp. Again, that's on one of those kind of invisible lines in Chicago. So trying to get engaged in the community, that's kind of fun. It's pretty low tech, but it's valuable, and it taught her how to garden. I like gardening, but I've only got a balcony, so I've got to get it where I can. Gonna popcorn it to.
I'm giving you some hints and the chat.
Oh, okay. Paola, I'll popcorn it to you then.
I think the other Paula Villegas.
Oh, sorry, the other Paola.
Yeah, hi everyone, this is Paola. I'm an emergency management consulting, where I focus specifically on disaster preparedness. And I heard about City Open on social media. I've been a resident. I've lived in Rogers Park for about 4 years now. So I'll have to say the community garden off Howard.
Thanks. All right, Athena.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthea Gore. I am a project coordinator at Elevate Energy, but my best job is momming it to the fullest. I heard about City Open because, you know, Paola is amazing. And fun fact, Elle and I went to the same high school. Do I have a favorite community garden in Chicago? So actually, I'm gonna like not answer the question. There's a wonderful Black-owned farm in Kankakee County, Pembroke Township. It's called Black Oaks. And it was my first time going down to like central Illinois to see like an expanded, like real farm. Like they have like 40 acres of just straight land, and they have a hoop house. They have a variety of produce that they're growing, and it's surrounded by ditchweed. So it was a very amazing experience. So if you have an interest in what peri-urban may look like, I can talk to you about what that looks like in connecting those. Central Illinois connects to like Chicago, because they also do a food hub. They bring food to like the south suburban municipalities because everybody's struggling to get food right now. So I thought that was just an interesting thing to share, because you don't hear about a lot of African-American farmers. So check them out, Black Oaks. Yeah, that's it in the chat. Awesome.
Emma?
I think Emma's kind of listening in. She asked me to introduce her. Emma works at Smith Group. She'll be rejoining when her kid is asleep.
Yeah.
And I'm Ray Perez. I work at Daylight, which is a strategic consultancy, and I also now work with Al at Get Cities, and she's the one who told me about this. So my favorite community garden is one in North Lawndale. It's right behind the old Sears Tower, and it's on the old train line, and there's a bunch of students who run it, and I just think it's a beautiful part of the neighborhood. Oh, I should popcorn. Genevieve?
Hi, I'm Genevieve. I am an architectural designer at SNH and Eagle-Hartree Architects. I have heard about City Open through a friend who's since moved away. My technology is glitching, so I can't see the chat or any of the participants. So after this, just shoot me on to the next person, Paula.
Okay, it's James Young.
James. Okay. Yeah. I love all the gardens. That's a weak answer, but I can't find one. So James.
Thanks. This is James Young. I'm an architect at Booth Hanson, and have been engaged with City Open for a couple seasons now. Really love what you guys do. The Quetzalcoatl Peace Garden is a really small, awesome space, kind of adjacent to the Whittier Elementary School in Pilsen, and it's a great resource for the community and serves as a classroom for science. It's an awesome space. You should check it out.
Jordan.
And
yeah, I'm Jordan. I'm an architect currently working at MPC as an associate of land use and planning and ETOD. So that's my connection here. My favorite community garden, I'm not sure what it's called, but there's one down in Little Village by Lovely Park, which is a great little spot close to the south branch of the river. So Liz is next.
Hello. Yes, I'm Liz from Aria Group Architects. I am an architect. I heard about City Open last season with the restaurant reopening guide. And then my favorite community garden in Chicago, I think it's just called the Neighbor's Garden. I'm not sure about that, but it's on Sacramento, just south of Logan. My apartment is right across the street. It's just a cute little community garden. And then I think Kristen.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Kristen. I am the content lead at Weisendale. We are architecture, design / branding, marketing firm, small team here in Chicago. I heard about City Open. Mark participated, as he mentioned, in the restaurant reopening stuff. I had heard about City Open actually also through Jenny Hahn. She kind of tipped me off to it. So shout out to her. I actually just moved to Chicago a year ago, but it feels like 3 months ago because COVID kind of made it hard for me to explore. So I really don't know much about the community gardens here. So I can't really answer that question, unfortunately. But I'm sure they're all great. And is that everyone? Was I last or?
I think we have Debbie and Pasan.
Oh, yes. So Debbie.
Hi everyone, this is Debbie. I'm with Metropolitan Planning Council, and I heard about City Open through our work, but also probably before that too. And my favorite garden, I don't really think there is a favorite. I think I'm really impressed with the children or the school ones. The closest one to me is National Teachers Academy, which has a pretty big, extensive community garden. And then I don't know who else is last.
I think I'm up. My name's Pasan. I'm an associate at SB Friedman Development Advisors. I heard about City Open through my friend Nate Seaskin, who I believe is also on this call. And my favorite community garden is the Harambee Community Garden out in Austin. And I guess, Nate, you're up.
Hi, my name is Nate Seeskin, and I am currently in the market for planning work. So, if anyone has any suggestions, I'm all ears. I heard about City Open through a fellow alum of my college, Katie Olson, who used to work at UI Labs, and I'd say my favorite community garden in Chicago is, I'm not sure if it technically is categorized as one, but it's called Warner Park on Warner Avenue in Graceland West area, just west of Graceland Cemetery. And it's this little park that's tucked within a neighborhood, and there used to be a gazebo there, and it was taken down this spring. So, but it's a really great place to meet up with friends, especially during the times of social distancing. And so, yeah, I'd say that's my favorite community garden.
Oh, that's really exciting. I've been like taking notes of all the gardens that I don't know about. So I hope you find that also exciting, that you get to hear from others' perspectives, like the top 5. You don't need to go to the Reader or, you know, Southside Weekly, or you just have a community that is sharing here their favorite stuff. Okay, do we have any announcements? We use this time also to share like exciting things that you all are involved with or you want to hear about. We usually use the newsletter as a way to communicate those. Elle, is there anything in the pipeline? Did you guys present that already at IPA conference? Is that this week or it was last week?
Oh, it was today.
Oh, well, how'd that go?
So it was pretty fun. We City Open presented on the accessory dwelling unit work we did last year. It was Angeli, Allison, Steven, and myself. It was pre-recorded, so kind of different. So we actually didn't see the people watching it, but then we got to answer questions on ADUs. So you can take a look at our past projects for the ADUs for that information. And APA Illinois is still going on till Friday. So definitely check it out if you're interested in kind of planning.
Yeah, this team did a fantastic, I'm just going to show you guys off. This is a fantastic project. Finished a couple of weeks ago. You can download 2 guides in Spanish and English, and this is the amazing work of a lot of really like talented and generous designers. So if you know a business that is interested in learning more visually, the guidelines for reopening, please feel free to share this this website. I'm just going to put it in the chat as well. Anything else that we should be aware of? Any events? MPC, anything in your pipeline? You're always organizing stuff, so.
I'm seeing 2 in the chat, Paula, from Maddie and Genevieve.
Oh, wonderful. So, yeah.
Oh, mine is ill-timed. It's not an announcement.
Okay, Maddie, you want to just give a quick shout out to this one?
So I'm on the Emerging Professional Committee for Illinois ASLA. And we're starting this new series where we reach out to people in the community who are doing things with sustainability. And it's just a conversation. So this next week or so, we're having someone from A Space to Grow from Open Lands. And the information is all right there.
Oh, thank you. Can we make sure this goes into our notes, into our Google Notes? Yeah. So we usually use, so you know, there is a space under here. Yeah. Under acknowledgements, we have announcements and events, so we don't lose all this really cool websites. Allison, can you just mention quickly around these ones?
Yeah. So first, Antero Group, I'm leaving, so my space is being vacated, but they're looking for an urban planner designer. I would emphasize on the designer part. So if you know anyone, I really feel like it's more of a landscape architect secretly that they want. But if you have a planning design background, please contact me if you're interested. The link is there for our job posting. We're also hiring an engineer. I know they want to hire pretty quickly, so please email me with questions. And then the other thing is an event coming up on October 22nd. It's going to be a virtual variety show. I'm on the board of Rebuilding Exchange, and it should be a fun event. Some are like in the moment workshops, and some are like people performing or like art exhibit type stuff. And I think they're also going to have a live auction. Yeah, and so you can see it there. More details are going to be there for people to RSVP. Put it on the
Thank
calendar.
you. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So if you have anything else to share, please make sure to drop it in our notes here. It's always nice to have basically us referencing each other's events and where are we meeting with other committee members of the design or planning community.
Yours, right, Paula? Are you presenting at the Columbus Expo?
Oh my God, yes, I I forget. You mean like the Columbus Symposium?
The symposium, yeah.
Yes, yes. I will make sure to put on the notes, or if you have it handy, do you mind just dropping in there?
Sure.
Columbus, Indiana, like 4 hours away from Chicago, has this annual design symposium. Sorry, every 2 years, and I'm speaking about arts and community with a panel. Louisa is gonna do me the favor of putting here and announcements and notes. I'm not like I'm doing like shameless plug, so I just I forget where I'm speaking. Thank you for reminding me.
And is that the same as the Restorative Design Conference, Paula, or is that another thing?
No, that's another thing. Oh, God.
Oh, you're on fire.
So, okay, I'll make sure to put those for our next, I think they're after our next workshop. So, yeah, I'll make sure to plug those in the chat, in our agenda next time, and make sure to invite everyone and putting, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, that conference is organized by Greater Good Studios, so that's gonna be also good.
Yeah, Paula,
Mm-hmm.
we're having our harvest days here at the Windsor Park Garden. I put it in the announcements. So
over here?
Yeah, it's at
Okay,
the
cool.
There are
Windsor
several
Park.
dates.
Ooh, speaking of gardens, right? If you want an opportunity to come out to a community garden, this is a really great opportunity.
Yep. And on the 10th of October, we're going to be partnering with another veterans organization called The Mission Continues. So they're going to be here to help us build pathways through our permaculture section.
Awesome. Is that last one, Antina? You want to talk about that one?
Sure, if you can hear me over the baby. So there is just a 2-hour virtual discussion on Friday from 7 to 9. Since we aren't going anywhere too often, it shouldn't be a problem. But I thought it was really interesting that there's a discussion about the state of Black design. And it's an event where Black design practitioners and academics are going to discuss industry, pedagogy, design activism, what it means to decolonize, and all of those types of things. So I think it would be a really interesting discussion and where things are in society. And there are going to be people from all over, especially a couple of folks from OCAD and some folks who've done stuff with Creative Reaction Lab and Aspen Institute. So it ought to be a really robust discussion.
Wow, yeah, this looks fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. See, this is how we get to know about really cool stuff, because you guys are onto it. This is great. Empathy, anything that you want to highlight, Debbie?
No, just I think there's one transportation event on Thursday tomorrow, but I think it's going to keep uploading with new events, including the CDI on that page. So if anyone wants to check it out, that's where it's going to be.
Cool. Yeah, State of Transportation Planning next week, September 25th. Excellent. All right, thank you, everyone. I am going back to this slides. So one thing, it was a really fantastic visit. I think a lot of questions came from that visit around like, what are we doing? What's City Open supposed to be doing? I just wanted to refresh this on our for today's conversation and breakouts. So just recapping, and again, if you go to the slides from last session from workshop 1 that you can find in our in the website if you haven't. I'm just gonna navigate through that really quickly. If you go to calendar, all our materials are put here in under the workshop session, so you have access to the notes, but also the slides. And recently, because we've been being able to record our sessions, now we have our video. We're still working on our notes for this post, but you can watch and review the presentation that was given by our MPC partners, Debbie and Kendra. So you can review that here. And again, it links back to presentation agenda. All those are just resources, so you can, if you ever want to go back to any items of information, those are there. And so I wanted to just remind us, City Open is supporting with only one of the parts of a three kind of part process called the Corridor Development Initiative. The Corridor Development Initiative is a methodology that is pretty much established, and we are supporting and rethinking what a community engagement session looks like in times of social distancing, right? Like that's our task. And I just want you to be aware that there are two parallel timelines. They're different, they're parallel, they're connected, but I wanted to clarify this. So City Open usually has 6 sessions. We usually meet 6 times every 2 weeks. So we are right now, this is where we are today in the prototype session. We did just last Saturday our site visit, that it was the one thing that we did in person. And we will continue to meet all the way until the beginning of November. We started a month before, and there are other parallel activities related to the CDI. There's the stakeholder group or steering committee group meetings, but we are connecting specifically around community meetings because we're tasked with supporting community engagement, public engagement. So the items that are relevant from the timeline of CDI to us is anything that has to do with public engagement. No community meetings have taken place as part of that broader process. The first one is going to be on and I'll let Kendra and Debbie confirm this, but as our last kind of check-in, the meeting that is going to be the first one is on the beginning of October. So October the 1st is going to be the first time that there's going to be a community meeting as part of the CDI process. And the meeting, the second community meeting is going to be like a split. It's going to be multiple channels for that because it's supposed to gather more input and have more interactive elements. It's going to be split in 3. So instead of having just one meeting, there are going to be three versions of it or 3 different moments of it. It's going to go through Thursday all the way to Wednesday. So it's between virtual, in person, and virtual again, which for our meeting number 4, the usual time that we meet at City Open, we're going to dedicate basically that time to host a larger number of people, a larger group from including community members. And then there's going to be the third meeting from the CDI process, going to be at the end of October. Again, City Open, it's mostly supporting with this second component, the block exercise method for the development of scenarios, but we want to encourage everyone to be part of the community meeting 1 and the community meeting 3, so you understand a little bit of the insights and perspectives and input that come from community members. We already heard a little bit on Saturday from Rolf and Torrance, who welcome us who walk with us in the neighborhood. And we will invite you and communicate also the time for the third community meeting where you can hear the summary, but also some of the additional analysis that's going to be done as part of the development scenarios. We will continue to meet, just kind of processing, debriefing, and finding ways to come up with some additional documentation. But I just want to make sure everyone understands there's 2 different parallel timelines. That's the best way that I found to describe this. And we are kind of starting ahead with some of the community engagement, kind of planning, brainstorming, and prototyping. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So this is Al Ramel. One thing to note on the City Open workshop, every other week, in September. So every other week there will be a working group option. So if you want to work with your breakout groups, we'll meet every other Wednesday from City Open as well. Yeah, maybe we can note those. But one thing is, I just made breakout groups in the groups. So I'm going to put the 3 breakout group worksheet. Please check your name. I have got like 8 new people that aren't signed up for a category. So if you want to just pick in-person, virtual, or DIY.
Is this somewhere here, El?
No, I can put the spreadsheet there, but I'm going to put it in the chat right now, and I'll put the spreadsheet in the agenda.
Okay.
It's just easier for me to,
Yep.
I just literally sorted you all. So I made some guesses. I'm going to watch it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, if there are any questions about like calendar, let us know. So I just want to also recap what is City Open team doing in this collaboration with the CDI process. Now that we understand timeline, so we're going to develop engagement materials that can be used both digital and in person based on the methodology for block exercise. This is based on the charrette model. Again, it's pretty established, like it's very straightforward. We can be very creative, but I think there's like, there's no need to reinvent the wheel either. We are going to support MPC team with facilitation of engagement of activities during that community meeting too. And as mentioned, if possible, join other community meetings 1 and 3 for additional engagement, additional context and feedback from the community. El, do you want to guide through this?
Sure. Okay, so so the site visit recap, everyone. If you're interested in doing this on your own, I made a beautiful map of red lines. But what we did is Torrance Gardner and several members of the community were able to take us around the Rogers Park site. So what you're looking at is you're looking at the Howard Line Transit Center. It's the area in white. Howard is running kind of across the picture, and then Paula's got Hello Howard Community Garden. That's our site. It's pretty big. It's I would say 3/4 of a block. It's a city-owned parcel of land. They talked about Howard Street is kind of a demarcation line between. There's an idea that people north of Howard and people south of Howard are different. And then the Peterson Garden is here. You know, it is a nonprofit on its own. People mention other Peterson Gardens, so the community mentioned that they're not always like participating in this, especially African American or Black. So we showed this site here as well. But yeah, the green elements were essential. There's a lot of advocacy and restorative justice between different gangs and gang members. So there was a discussion about Howard. There's not as much street traffic as you would think in a dense neighborhood like this, mostly because there's been kind of a perception and stigma around that. Then we moved on to the kind of the school. This is Gale Elementary. We're looking to involve them with the in-person and maybe the DIY, the students. Also, the principal's been connected to me through Torrance. It's also a it was a great opportunity to just like all meet together. I mean, we haven't really gone to a live event like this before. So I think it brought up some ideas of like, you've got a transit center, you've got the beach, you've got university, you've got a lot of resources. But, you know, how do you make this site applicable to the surrounding community? A big thing was like, how do you put jobs there just for this neighborhood? Because people can't cross certain gang lines. People have a certain ideas of Howard. So there was like an idea of jobs, idea of housing. Torrance was nice enough to send over some design parameters. Historically, there have been some discussions around the site. So we'll discuss that later in the day. But I think it was good to just get context. If you do want to go up there, again, Howard and Ashland, red line of Howard or Howard Street. Take a look around and yeah, that's what we did on Sunday. So thank you everyone for who attended.
Yeah, I just want to open it here for additional insights from anyone who wants to share. I think Elle like outlined really some of the highlights, but yeah, anyone else who wants to contribute with any insights? What did you like? Saw as opportunities around the site or like challenges?
Yeah, Paola, I just want to say thank you so much for organizing it, UNL. Getting Torrance from the Alderman's office was inspired. He was a fantastic speaker and really engaging young guy. And it just really brought it to life as to who we're doing this for and why. So thank you again.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of questions too. I mean, it would be helpful to organize some of that and just pass it to the MPC team. Because, you know, I remember Ray doing some, like, also on other members, like highlighting some questions that could be insightful to ask during community meeting 1, just as a reference, since we were making all these reflections while we were walking, like things that would be helpful to know. Anyone else?
So,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I thought it was, I guess a learning for me, or there's an interesting narrative about space, because one of the things we do is we work with the health department to do kind of like of health assets in the neighborhood. So they're like very data oriented with findings. You know, Rogers Park has a lot of green space and a lot of open space and places for people to kind of be outside and experience kind of the benefits of that. But then we heard on the tour, you know, about the underutilization of a lot of those spaces, at least on this side, and the sense that these spaces are not, you know, for the entire community, and shifting of aspects of the facilities, in some instances to decrease activity, you know, in those green spaces. So I just thought that was an interesting and important finding, I guess you can say.
Yeah, that resonated with me too, the underutilization, especially of the park across the street, which is, you know, you would think it's so central, it's so close to transit, but also it feels quiet. For like, we were there on a Sunday, like midday, it was really quiet. Especially now that our open spaces are basically like community gathering spaces.
Yeah,
Cool.
I would second that. And like, you know, that street, the actual sidewalk on Howard is really active. And I can say, like, you know, even when we were not there, like often that the sidewalks are people are just hanging out, but like the parks, you know, are not spaces where people feel that they can hang out. So like, I think an important, you know, thing to understand is going to be like what makes somebody feel like they're welcomed into a space, and who is welcome, because like Rogers Park is not a homogenous community, and like there's very different perceptions of open space.
Yeah.
So Paola, this is Lisa. You know, the reality is we are still in a pandemic, and you know, in my I've lived over here for 6 years, and I'm a regular customer of Soul Cafe. So I've had my time of being in that block. And there's been times where I've seen that park very active on a weekend. And so despite the fact that we had that gorgeous weather day on Sunday, I still wonder if, you know, what we're seeing is a little skewed, just from the standpoint that people may still indeed be scared of the pandemic and to be out and about. And, you know, we saw some mask wearing and we saw some not mask wearing, and we saw some kids and families out, and as we walked, and then to everyone's point, it looked a little empty too. But I do think there's sort of these other factors that could be out there that is the reality of our day. And at the same time, the other thing that's interesting is that you may have noticed, like at the school and as we walked, I mean, things were beautiful. You know, we saw beautiful flowers, we saw beautiful gardens, we saw nice landscaping, we saw, you know, this is not a neighborhood that gives you the impression that it's crumbling or falling apart, or that it's had mass disinvestment like other parts of the city. And the thing that I also thought was interesting that we heard from our host was that, yes, jobs, we need jobs, but at the same time that a lot of people are reluctant to seek jobs from the existing business base in the Howard corridor. So it's still interesting to try to understand how can that connection be made on this site and I guess it's probably very dependent on what organizations get involved to help bring people in. And just lastly, I'm sorry, I don't mean to dominate it. It's just as a neighborhood resident, I have all this going through my head. One thing that I do think is going to be interesting for us to understand better is, again, the notion of, is this one RFP or is this two RFPs with this site? Because of these back-to-back parcels. And then, of course, the other parcel that Torrance brought to our attention just to the east. And is there a play on that, or is there an ability to include that in the overall planning of the site?
You're talking about this, right?
Right.
Well, and I would say, as far as the RFP situation, the city has not had a preference. The RFP is not written. It's not underway yet. I mean, that's the next step after this process. So I think our recommendations can reflect, if we're recommending it be broken into two separate RFPs, that can be part of the recommendation.
Yeah, I'm highlighting what Lisa is describing. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
And I would agree with Lisa. Lisa, I'm your neighbor somewhere in Rogers Park too. And I do think some of what we saw was a reflection of the current state of the union, I guess. I mean, there used to be a really active youth football program at the park and youth cheerleading program at the park. And, you know, you definitely saw a lot more family activities. So I'm not sure what's changed. I do know some of the, you know, violence in the area has stemmed from, I guess there are these Facebook kind of rap videos, and it seems to be that you know, this community, you know, has a lot of hard edges, but they also have a lot of creative aspects to them. And I think it would be great to really start to explore some of the ways you could take the creative nature, you know, of what the youth is doing there and flip it to a positive.
Yeah, these are really interesting insights and very important, right? Like, how do we, this is the moment to expand, you know, the options, the opportunities, and like really assess all of them. So I think those are really important kind of observations and comments. And I think our job is not, you know, it's just to bring all the most available information so community members learn about other ways in which this parcel can be, or this site can be redeveloped. What are all the opportunities? What are all the potential uses? Like, just expand the palette. So there's a discussion, there's a productive discussion about like, not only either or, but like yes and all these things can be possible in different phases, perhaps, and broken into different scales, and articulated hopefully through like building typologies that are interesting and beautiful and unique and innovative. I just have to say, I'm just really tired of seeing like the same type of building that goes up in Chicago when there's just such an incredible richness of designers, and you know, every single like new affordable housing building looks very similar. So like, I think there are very few who are pioneering that end. So
what types of outreach and engagement will City Open do with the community?
That's actually a really good area of clarification, because we're not doing outreach. That's not in our kind of scope of services. That's more, Kendra, you want to talk a little, or Debbie, you want to talk a little bit about that aspect?
I'll let Debbie talk about that.
Say again?
I said I'll let Debbie talk about that.
Oh, Debbie, yeah. Do you want to talk about the outreach? Like, who's coming to community meeting 1 and how they're being reached out?
Hi, yeah. So I can share a little bit about how we've been approaching this right now. So we have an advisory committee, and that's made up of local stakeholders. The whole point is that we're hoping to have the stakeholders be able to reach out to their constituents in a way that could be really helpful, whether that's in language or with their special population. So, for example, Gale, which is the elementary school that we passed, some local school council members are on this advisory council. There's various nonprofits that are also on this council, including Howard Area Community Center and a Just Harvest, which are some organizations that we had passed during our walk. So that's one avenue. So we have a comms team that will be promoting this more heavily through our social media and website presence. And then we're also going to push that out through the alderman's office so that that messaging gets shared, and those flyers are also shared, whether that's posted or canvas with their volunteer team. So we're going to use many different approaches to ensure that what gets produced will be reached to the neighborhood. So some of the things that we're hoping to finalize this week is making sure all our flyers are ready so that they're ready to be printed and distributed starting this weekend with the canvassing team that the alderman has, as well as just like volunteers in general. So that is mostly what is happening in terms of like the social media, the outreach, the physical outreach space. And I think one more thing, which I feel like I'm missing. Oh, so everything is going to be translated into English and Spanish for sure. So we know that there are about 5 other top 5 languages that are spoken through community services. However, we're not really sure how much of that we are able to translate on the spot or like in person, but we know for sure all our flyers are in English and Spanish, which will be translated. What else? So the first meeting will be on Zoom, but it will be live streamed on like either YouTube or Facebook Live. I think we settled on Facebook Live, and then we'll have the alderman stream it herself, and then people will share it. So since the alderman already has quite a bit of a following, it makes more sense to do the outreach with that directly. Oh, now I remember what the last thing was. Okay, so the alderman also has a texting service, which we'll work with and tag team on. So she already has kind of like this listserv of phone numbers that she reaches out to. So we're gonna be able to have on the flyer a number to text with the word like Howard, and then they'll text that, and then they'll feed us information about like maybe it's what do they want to see on the site, and then it's on a set of A, B, C, D. It's like park or office or retail or whatever. And then it'll be like a feedback loop of just like general survey of like sentiments of the community at that time. So those are some multiple ways we're trying to outreach for that ahead of that first meeting. We are also producing videos. These videos will be hopefully ready by next week. And we'll start pushing them out on YouTube and other social media sites. So then it becomes like a teaser ahead of that first meeting. And the topics are like, what is equitable transit-oriented development? What is a CDI? Why Rogers Park? What is this process? What is TIF? What is zoning? Those like basic questions that may be easier to convey in a video than like a fact sheet.
So I think also to clarify everyone, the part that City Open plays is actually more of the delivery method of the block exercise. So we are not the engagement partner. We are the kind of massing and manipulation of the site partner. So that's, Paul, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I think to clarify, I think we're an engagement partner, but we're not an outreach partner. Like we're not doing outreach. We're doing just design, engagement, and facilitation because we'll be there, facilitating, like, and doing some of that work specifically for the part 2, which is the block exercise. Okay, so this is an interesting, I was reflecting on this because everything is special this year, right? So in a typical goals of the block exercise, and if you want to drop the Woodlawn report in the chat, this is a very different year, right? And our engagements are a little bit different, or a lot different. So in a typical block exercise, the goals would be: 1, create hypothetical developments using, blocks, and community members exploring design and financing options for their ideas. I feel like typically, if I'm correct, Kendra, Debbie, this is like a 2-hour, 3-hour charrette session or something like that. No, in previous versions, there's like enough time to go through several components. And then finally, as their community members go through their proposals, they're being sketched in real time with some designers, while real estate advisors calculate development costs. I think it's important to discuss today, like how much can we do in like an hour of engagement. I think just kind of calibrating that and thinking like what are the opportunities to reflect and talk about, discuss this information in a much more condensed timeline. Considerations for designing block exercise with social distancing engagement. Well, we have shorter time. I feel like our span attentions in Zoom, like the max out probably is going to be like 60 minutes. Similar in person, especially in this one, we want to do several sessions in the same day. And a big consideration is keeping content simple, high level, but highly visual, specifically if we are having conversations outdoors, like the sound is also distracting, environments are distracting. So the level of focusing is very, very different. So keeping simple and high level and highly visual. I think it's a good design principle. Outdoor and digital engagement makes focusing more challenging. So just keep that in mind. If you are, a multitasker in your Zoom, you're doing 3 other things while you're trying to participate in a meeting. So there are limitations with like attention span. And in person, again, like there's so many activities going around us. So I think it's important to consider and talk about those. Limitation with interactive components, digital sessions can be recorded. That's a really awesome thing. You can go back to sessions. The documentation in person, we need to define what would be the method for that as part of our session. So this is what I think could be a really interesting kind of series of goals. And then Kendra, Debbie, we can go back and forth on this a little bit, and Torrance, if I can't remember if he's still on the call. So maybe it would be good to reference insights and input from the committee meeting 1 to bring that material, because we don't know how many participants from the first meeting will come to the second one, right? So it's always good to reference. Introduce design parameters, or what I call the rules of the game, like what are we playing with? So uses, intensity, and I think that some of those items were shared previously in our past session. Intensity of site occupation, density, building typology, architectural character, phases of development, etc. And then define development priorities based on visual preference. We were talking on site about like what would be a really easy way to learn about what possibilities of use and form and scale, while documenting preference on some of them. So, and that the research plays a really relevant role in that, on creating that resource.
Ray, you put a great question in the comments about, are there any outcomes for the brainstorming phase we should have in mind, like list of primary uses. It got sent a little late today, but Torrance, one thing that Torrance sent us is like all the history of things that have been sort of asked for, or like emphasis on, like a certain amount of housing, a certain amount of green space. So we'll work to distill that down and send that around. But there will be that, but also the community meeting 1 will have like some initial chatter or some input. We don't want to limit people that come to the rules of the game, but we may just point out certain things would be in the final, could be in the final. Like some things of note have surfaced a lot for this neighborhood already.
And then the sessions, we have two types of sessions, basically virtual. We are planning for that during 2 different days, 1 session per day. And then the in-person one, which is a little bit more intense. And then I just put some like times there that I kind of remember, Kendra, from our walk and talk on Sunday. But I think that we're aiming for like 3 sessions, kind of spaced out during like 3-4 hours during the midday on Saturday, October 10th. And I was just imagining, this is all for discussion again, how would an agenda look like, a 60-minute agenda would look like on-site, virtual, with kind of a block exercise in mind. So that could be a possibility, like session introduction. What are the goals of the session? Introduction of participants, like introducing the site. I think it's important to get a sense of dimensions, zoning, constraints, capacity of development, understanding the design parameters, and then identifying development priorities and build scenarios of development. Just kind of like building it up to, okay, we're moving blocks around, but like they're coming with a lot of context and background information.
And Paula, we actually allocated 90 minutes for each of the design shreds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Ooh.
That's so would that mean that we only have 2 sessions in person?
No. Well, I mean, we're offering 4 sessions, but if we don't get critical mass for those 4 sessions, then we would, eliminate them.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long day.
We'll be doing shifts. Is understanding people aren't going to go exactly on time, and then people kind of sign in, and kind of all the kind of we actually get to talking.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. So 90 minutes. Yeah. It definitely gives. I mean, it's definitely good to have more time for the last 2, right? That's the one. That's the meat of the. That's the meat of. Well, for vegetarians, this analogy makes no sense. Like that's the important part of the charrette. But like, I think this is just for us a.
And I think it makes sense to keep the meat of it to try to be within 60 minutes.
Right. So the 30 are a buffer. Like this okay? So this looks like something that looks closer, just including the buffer at the beginning and the end. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So I wasn't too off. Great. That's great. 3 or 4 sessions. So it's virtual. No, virtual is 90 minutes. That's a good question. Does that also apply for virtual?
We've allocated for so the virtual workshops, October 8th, we've allocated 11 to 12:30 and 6 to 7:30 on 8th. And then on the 14th, 6 to 7:30.
Okay. No, that's really cool. I'll update this deck based on the stuff from the chat. I'll send the slides just for reference. I think these are some of the parameters that we discussed last time. And, from possible uses of the space, but basically program, the intensity of development, the density, the building form and articulation, phases of development. This last one for me emerged really clearly during the walk and the visit, architectural and neighborhood character. Just because there's there's so many beautiful buildings around it, and how do we preserve some of that character? Even though it's a massing exercise, but is there a form in which we can think about of the typologies adjacent to the site? So that's that. And then, what we need to do is okay, what do we need to prepare for those different types of engagements, right? We have 3 working groups. Someone's the virtual, the outdoor in person, and then the remote DIY. But I think for today, we want to kind of break into engagement material needs. And there's the site understanding, which basically has to be the base drawings, the site, kind of describing the site clearly with dimensions and things that are important to highlight. The kind of base drawing group. In the in-person group, we defined those 3 at the very beginning, so it might be good to just, everyone who's working in base drawings, either virtual or in-person methods, they can get together and talk about how that's going to be developed and organized and coordinated. Design parameters, I think we talked briefly about how could this be panels that are about visual preference as a method. And that could work, that needs to be integrated in terms of research and all the assets that people have been collecting. I saw something from Weissendale, really cool. I wanna dive into that. And then build informing uses, that's basically how do we use this idea of the block building in digital and in person. I think in person it's much more straightforward. We know they're gonna be blocks, they're gonna be modules, they're gonna be color coded, but yet we need to know how to coordinate the production of that. Are there any burning questions, thoughts? Is this where we're gonna spend the next, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes? Elle, how are we gonna do this?
So Paula, just to clarify, I just sorted them into the 3 groups, but do you want them in these groups?
If you sort them by that's also fine.
I sorted by that, yeah, because
okay.
I might create a separate
Okay.
tab in the spreadsheet
No,
or like?
that's okay. I think what we will ask then is that each of these groups designates like a
Yeah.
subgroup for each one of this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I
This
agree.
is-
I think it's just like knowing who I can put in touch with, because for the working session next week, I want to go half the materials, half the implementation plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Sorry. For those subgroups, like, can people kind of share those references? Like, if there's a base map people are already using, like we can all use the same one, or
That's the purpose. Like that each group, like outdoor in-person group, we already have 2 people working on base map. So those 2 people, Genevieve and Maddie, should be talking to whoever is doing drawings in the virtual team.
And Maddie uploaded a start to a base map in the Google Drive under the, I think it's under the base map or base template files or whatever that's called. So, and it's like, it's a start, so we can always massage it. But yeah, feel free, I think, maybe if all the groups have a chance to take a look at it today, and if there's thoughts about what would make it more helpful or less helpful, it'd be great to have one file.
And
So-
basically, I was trying to get scale and sheet size, and down, and then
Cool. Do you guys want to drop that in the chat so people can have access to it?
You know, Paula, just because of time, I'm looking at time in the breakout groups. Do we maybe just want to have a discuss? Like, I can start building the material groups right now on another tab. Maybe we just do this for 10 minutes together, because I don't know if breaking
makes sense
right now.
at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
It also might be helpful if you go back to the subgroups, just so I can remember what they all are. I mean, it might be valuable for having people within the virtual, in-person, and DIY to have your group kind of break out and see who's interested in like the base map design, the research, and so that within each one of our larger umbrellas, like we have people kind of touching on all these other topics, so the communication is kind of streamlined, so that like everyone, like I've already taken a look at the base map for the DIY group, so I could be like that person. Does that make sense?
Cool. Yep.
I don't know if that would be helpful.
Yeah, because I think it'll be like a matrix, right? Like we'll start dividing these like crazy breakout groups, because it'll be like half the engagement and half the materials.
I guess when I'm looking at the ideas for what a virtual engagement will look like, I mean, there are things like SketchUp and GIS and the base maps that would be coming from Google Earth, and it's a matter of, to me, is what is accessible to people who are not in this field, because SketchUp is very difficult to use if someone has not used it before. Google Earth is confusing to try to navigate unless you're doing it every day, and it is are some of these tools providing another barrier to engagement or to participation beyond.
That's a really
Arnold,
good
I think that's why it'd be valuable from like a member from each group to figure out how do we translate those 3 branches. Like whoever's working in the virtual group, like you guys have all already had conversations about software. So what software could be helpful in furthering the conversation around, maybe there's a variation of the base map that you guys explore in the virtual group, because you're going to be more of an expert on.
Yeah, and I think, and I know Jordan's in the virtual group. Maybe I wasn't understanding your comment, Arnold, but I think the way we thought about it is the people who would be like using the more technical software like SketchUp would be the designers sharing their screen. So we're not like asking regular people to go into SketchUp and move things around, but they're kind of having the conversation and somebody's actually doing that as they're talking.
Yeah, Kendra, you're exactly right. That's what we've been talking about on the virtual team, is how can we streamline kind of a preset, sort of like in person you'd have the blocks, like can we have the digital blocks in SketchUp that an architect or whoever knows SketchUp can be manipulating really fast as people talk, so they can see their ideas kind of in 3D.
Yeah, Emma, that seems like a great idea, because in that way you're not wasting time like teaching people the tool. You're just showing them that that tool is available if they want to learn it, especially SketchUp because it's a free program.
Just one other thing for the one other thing for the DIY and the virtual to think about is we want to have an instruction guide group that is in all three, and we want to give the people the option, if they do DIY, they could also do virtual. Like they could go to virtual and then they could play along at their own house.
Yeah, so like imagine like if you print this or like send it in like an envelope, you know, with like a couple of sheets and like squares that are color coded. You can do this in your own like home and kind of take a picture, upload and share in several ways. I think for the base map, this is really helpful. I think a couple of things that would be helpful is like some form of dimension, right? Like to understand, you know, what is 10 feet, what is, you know, 20 feet, just as a matter of understanding scale and thinking of square footage and footprint. So when we're talking about, you know, scenarios of development in which 50% of the site it's actually open, like what does that mean? My advice to this site plan, Maddie, would be just getting some reference of scale. It could be a scale bar or, you know, just dimensions of the site.
Is there a scale bar at the bottom or did it get lost?
No, it is there.
So that probably needs to stand out more. Yeah, I was kind of hoping to get some of these other details down after we shared it with everyone.
Oh, this is great. I didn't see it.
Do you also think like dimensioning the site would be helpful?
I think so. I think, you know, like what is this frontage versus this one? I mean, it's very straightforward on the...
Can we get a survey or can we get a survey from the city?
So MPC has been in touch with the city. Apparently they only have paper files on this site and I haven't had any luck actually getting those files. I have the 80-acre sheet from the zoning website, which does include site dimensions that I can drop in that folder, but that's what we have as far as a survey.
I actually, I downloaded this program a while back. It's called City Mapper, and it's actually used for like Rhino software, but you can like pick a city and then pick a location. So Paula, like a while back when we were working with the Englewood Arts Collective, like I picked a block down in Englewood. So I could see if this area is there, because then it'd be really easy to create a map, because then you could do like an Illustrator file and just have a really clean base file, and then we could start to overlay data on top of it. I can look into that and send it to the group.
That would be great.
Well, I've got a quick question for you and Kendra. Doing these kind of engagement exercises with the public, what other methods have worked in the past? You know, it's like, if you were to do this map in Lego and it's like you know, just to say, okay, it's 20 tiles long or 20 brick lengths long by 30 brick lengths long, whatever it may be, might be really good for people with kids that have got Lego that can actually build this stuff up really easily and low techy, you know, so that it's kind of the cost of engagement is minimal for someone that has that kind of low-tech tools. What are some of the, and Kendra, what are some of the other ways that you get engagement out of people, either virtually or in person or any other way that maybe we should know about?
Well, I don't know virtually. We're going to find out because this is the first time. This is the first time we're doing this virtually. I think so when we do this in real life, we have these wooden blocks and people playing around and they're assigned a certain amount of square footage. So one green block might be 10,000 square feet of green space. I think what really gets people engaged is the facilitation by the designers and the people who are kind of talking them through the exercise and really beginning to pull out of them, like, what do you want to see? What should this look like? Kind of asking the right questions. I think people like to play with the blocks because it's something tactile and they can begin to, like, you know, put like something physical around what they're talking about. But I really think that the most important probably part of this exercise is being able to facilitate that conversation and pull those ideas out of people to like get to consensus and visualizing, articulating what they'd like to see. And then you could visualize that, you know, with SketchUp, with renderings, like somebody drawing and that sort of thing. But that's my thought.
This is Anthena. I've been a part of a couple of virtual trainings, and actually I did an implicit bias training recently, and it was really, really good, really engaging. And the one thing that the facilitator did that was interesting was she sort of had these natural breaks in the presentation where she would go over like a concept or a certain way of thinking, and then she would sort of stop and say, okay, well, now on this slide, here's a prompt, or here's something where you type in an answer to a question, sort of like a mini quiz to make sure people are still engaged. So if maybe this is something that could happen if we are giving people information, is there a certain way to chunk it and sort of have these natural breaks where people are interacting in that one piece and then putting a visual element to it and then sort of moving on. So you're building as you're going through the presentation, sort of.
We have a couple of different software that we use that I'd be happy for this group to utilize as well. We use Mentimeter, which is kind of cool. Has anyone used Mentimeter? I love that.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, and then we've been using Mural a lot.
Mural, yeah.
Yeah, so Mural is like a big whiteboard, and you can have breakout voting sessions, or, you know, make everyone kind of sticky back, but it's a way to feel like you're together when you're not.
Paula and I were talking about the blocks of, just quickly, like a plan and a section where you maybe draw like the footprint and then maybe you draw the height.
Yeah,
I
totally.
think 3D blocks might get tough.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to mention, Anthena, her comment made me think of it. I was actually in sorry, I have a really annoying cat. I was actually in a fellowship this summer, and one of the things, it was all centered around community engagement, and it was all virtual, which was very unique. But one of the things that we were introduced to was, and maybe more people know about this, was actually taking what they called as equity pauses, where like you're doing an engagement exercise and you leave space, whether it's 3 minutes or 5 minutes in the agenda, to just stop and say, is there anything that we should be considering that we're not considering, and just leaving it open for people to respond to rather than giving them prompts to respond to, if that makes sense. So then that way people introducing, especially for people who may not be quite as comfortable speaking on camera in Zoom meetings, or they may not know when to chime in, or they feel like they can't chime in, opening up that space for people to speak. And we actually did it during the fellowship, and it worked a few times. It worked every time that we did it. So just something to consider. I'm not in the virtual group, so I just wanted to share that.
These are all super helpful suggestions, by the way. I'm in the virtual group, and one of the things that came up a lot when we were working on this was like, how do we keep people engaged and ask good questions? And just one of the things I was thinking about when we're talking about like density or intensity of site occupation, like maybe it'll be helpful to look at those a little bit independently and say like, all right, let's put a poll out there, you know, or like you annotate the screen of like, on this scale, like what do you prefer? Like how dense do you want this site? And we can kind of get at those different parameters without necessarily having to do like a full model for all those things, and then use massing as a way to understand other aspects of the design.
I think that one thing Paula and I also talked about for us working groups to think about, I know we're running low on time today, but for the working session, and it's almost like we're all doing the same process of steps for that 90-minute engagement. You almost just play out like it's at home, it's on your computer, it's in person. It's almost like we decide on like the the type of engagement, almost like what we would do in person, and then pick a proxy version for the other two. I'm not saying that's perfect because there's different parts of it, but I think at some point, like, what does facilitation look like across all three? What do blocks look like across all three? I think that's why next week I want to break into those separate groups so we can like say, okay, what does a base map look like in all three arenas, etc. So much to do.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's great, guys. So I did create the like just like the sub roles, whether you guys do handle that over email or like team leads, if you want to directly correspond with everyone and just be like, what is each one very comfortable doing? Some of us are more designers, like some of us like me, you know, maybe are better on like typing things up and facilitating. So we'll take that working group session next week, which is what day is that? That is the 23rd. And I think that's where we'll probably break into those sub role areas and then convene halfway through and then go back into methods of delivery. But I actually really like that we met as a big group today because I think a lot of us were doing the same things. So, are there any final questions?
I'm getting a little antsy, so y'all have to like manage my anxiety.
Oh, I'm getting a little antsy too. There's gonna be some follow-up.
Well, I'm getting a little antsy with specifically thinking about like what physical like materials that we need and like have enough time to like make sure we can order those things for each group. So
yeah, I'm mostly worried about in person and DIY. Like there may have to be a work stream ahead of Wednesday, Kendra, where we like start building those at least those grocery lists.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is nuts. But it'll be
wait,
great.
but sorry, I'm back. The list of materials is printing boards and blocks. That's it, right?
Yeah, and then DIY might have to convene because we got a little Sponge City creative.
Oh, Sponge City.
Yeah,
you guys are too creative. Yeah, I think like foam material. I think that's the easiest. Yeah, I'm not worried about production if we were like using new materials or something, but this is
Kendra, she's so calm. You see that?
I see more detail than foam. Y'all gotta like tell me about
I know
this size foam, that size foam. Cut that up later.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, you'll have to come to the shop. Yeah.
No, we'll get on that.
Yes, no worries. Yeah. So yeah, just coordinating the base maps, I think, and setting up that scale. It's for me like more the priority because that defines what size are the blocks. So yeah, we can talk about that more.
Yeah, and it may be dividing and conquering where like some of us like with the facilitation and run of show, like we build that too right now, and then we'll know like what are the steps. Like there's some clear work streams that we can work on this week.
Question about that size for the base map, because I mean also just the orientation of it is probably going to be different on a screen as opposed to on, well, I don't know, that's maybe a question. Do we want to switch the orientation for the screen so that it fits on the screen better? But to the size, is 36 by 48, does that seem workable? Because I think there's two sizes that Maddie uploaded. One was 24 by 36, the other was 36 by 48.
I'll print one tomorrow. I think that's about right, 36 by 48. Like we don't have a table right on the side, so the limitation of a table is basically what's giving you the constraints of the printout. So I'll give you feedback on that.
Cool.
If anything else would be 24 by 36, that's totally fine.
And I mean, if we need to bring like a folding table, we can do that.
Yeah, it's going to come down to that, everyone, for your groups. The list of like folding table, masking tape, just like everything we can think of for that. So
seems like the bigger size would be easier to social distance around.
Yeah.
Kendra,
Ella had a
for MPC, is there a forcing date that would make you feel comfortable?
When is our in-person session? We have our in-person session is what, the 10th?
Mm-hmm.
So, well, the DIY, it feels like it's no time. Let me see. Where are we? 16.
Yeah, maybe you and I can back channel with Anthena about the DIY calendar, because the DIY is, the 50 boxes and then something we print, and it might just be getting those boxes assembled. I think it's just maybe Kendra will talk about like what needs to happen at what date, and then our groups will act accordingly.
Yeah, I think I want the materials at least by the end of next week, so we have plenty of time if we have to order things that aren't in stock.
Yeah, that's doable.
It seems like the DIY group. Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say, it seems like the DIY group, you're pretty close to nailing down the material from last session.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, we were just down to like DIY group. I'll send an email, but Torrance confirmed that we have some places to put those boxes. So we confirmed a pickup location.
Cool. Okay. I'll touch base with base drawing people group, so we can coordinate production and like dimensions and scales and all that.
Great.
And Ella, I just had a really quick question about sort of planning, to the planners on the group. Typically residential wants to be on roughly a 70-foot wide block, or parking on a 62-foot block, or, all those kind of things. And how is the best way of representing those blocks in terms of just standard planning dimensions gonna be helpful across the board?
So Kendra, I could be wrong, but it's typically like the community members didn't have to do the whole like trigger parking, like it wasn't as complex as like pure zoning code, right? Like you don't have to leave.
These folks are not designers, and we are not designing this like to be built. So just keep that in the back of your mind.
High level, remember, high level.
Yeah, the parameters, I mean, it would be good to think about like what are the potential parking reductions, because it's in a TOD area. So those kind of like loose things, we don't have to do one-on-one parking and that sort of thing. I think it's important, but I don't think we have to get like super technical, because I mean, the reality is there'll be RFP out. This will hopefully guide the RFP, and there'll be a developer and a design team who actually design whatever gets built there. So.
But Kendra, I was just wondering, like in terms of, if you show, this is the site area, this is at -5, this is the amount of area you can build, right? So that's 5 times the site area, which from 45,000, it's like 200,000, right? So that visually could be a diagram to say, if you're going to put all of this into residential, that translates into this amount of area as a block diagram. And you could have a series of those leading up to this discussion, that you don't design it for them, but you visually tell the story of what that means, right? Am I explaining that correctly?
Probably. I can't visualize it. So if you have a visual explanation.
Mark, I would say the Logan Square CDI and the Woodlawn CDI are really good for just showing how simple it was. So I think it'll be totally okay. And then I think the design references may come later, or more creatively, like a board or a Pinterest or something. For the sake of time and everyone's families and dinners, we're going to be wrapping up right now. So next steps are going to be look for that working group invitation for the next Wednesday. I sent some like roles. It's up to your breakout groups how you assign those roles, but we are driving towards material grocery lists probably by next Friday. And then Kendra, we'll talk about like just, I think getting DIY out is something we'll just confirm that schedule. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks so much for the enthusiasm that you guys are bringing to this project.
It's gonna be okay, Kendra.
Super excited.
Got you.
I know.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.